Hmm. Oh yeah, y'all, we're online. Live streaming still here upon YouTube, and I can't even believe it. But we are. I thought I would pop in. Obviously, I haven't been very frequent here on YouTube, and as I've explained, in case if you didn't catch it, I have a whole bunch to do, like a whole bunch. I pulled down a second job, and I don't want to get too personal, but I put down a second job and getting a little bit of money, not a lot, but getting some money, working on my community at the same time. It's real fulfilling in that sense. Takes up a lot of my weekend stuff, and then on the weekend I be doing things, gardening. I'm not gonna get too much into it. Those who know out there, they already know. Gardening. I have 2 gardens going, and I have a garden here in my apartment. That's 3 different gardens growing, and they're still doing their thing, and it's wonderful. Um, I'm not going to get into that too much, not on this stream. I wanted to obviously dive into the nitty gritty, and just to let everybody know. I know there's people who follow this channel and stuff, and they've kind of been tired of Parkland. And they might be thinking, well, why is he bringing it up again? All right. The thing is, there's reason for it. There's a reason for it, and I want to share it with you here in a second. But I also want to say that hopefully, if things go the way that I envision for the rest of today, I'll do this here stream. I want to get down to the nitty gritty. I want to talk with y'all for a little while, if you have some time. But then I want to get some stuff straightened around here, and make sure everything's ready for the week and stuff, and then perhaps come back on for a live stream later this evening, in which I already know what it is I want to talk about, and it's way more important things than what I'm about to talk about right now, to be quite honest. Way more important things and positive things later on tonight if we get the chance. I want to talk about legends. I want to talk about heroes. I'm tired of talking about, this and that, people selling us out. And yeah, there's going to be time to talk about those people, but in the meantime, I want to talk about heroes. I want to talk about legends. I want to talk about soldiers in the game, and they're out there. And I want to. There's plenty of things that we want to talk about. A lot of different people. I've already put out wrote out a list, and it's way more people. It's going to take many broadcasts to go through all the different heroes, people out there who are putting it down for you and I. All right. That's what I want to do later. I see someone up in the building. That's what I want to do later. It's going to be way more important than this, what I want to do right now. But this might prove to be important as well, this Parkland thing, what I'm going to go ahead and, even though it's like I'm beating a dead horse, and a lot of people, they're already tired of it. They've told me this. I understand. But, okay, for example, this is how this live stream came about, this broadcast. Earlier today, I was at the farmer's market, and I was definitely making heavy investments there. All right, I'm tired of going to the grocery stores. It's very disgusting to me. I live in San Antonio, Texas. I don't know about where y'all live, but out here it's freaking me out, dude. I'm so freaked out by it. And I'm just tired of going to the grocery stores. So I'm at the farmer's market, right? And I'm putting it down. And I'm talking with my people, creating quite a network of people. People know me at the farmer's market. All right, they know me. They know my sombrero that I bring out sometimes. They already know what it is when I come through there. And anyway, so I was talking with some people. I was talking with my people, and I don't know if he wants his name out there, but he inspired this live stream broadcast. I told him about this video that I made a long time ago, and he told me to send him a link, and I am going to send him a link probably after I do this broadcast. But I'm also going to send him a link to this broadcast just in case if he wants to know. Okay, because the link that I'm going to send him is an old school one. It's the Rabbit Hole documentary. Perhaps you already know about it. It's something I did a long time ago, and it was pertaining to Parkland. Right? And if you don't know what that is, it was a mass shooting in a county. I believe the county is called Broward County of South Florida, and Parkland is like the little town, I guess. And then in that town, they had a high school, Marjorie Stoneman Douglas. In that high school and stuff, and a whole travesty jumped off, and you might have forgot about it. And I wouldn't blame anybody for totally forgetting that this even happened. Now that our world is totally shooken up, I don't expect anybody to remember what was happening back before 2020. But so that did have there was a mass shooting, and here's the thing. The thing is, when I look at it, it looks to me, after all the rabbit holes I've dived down and all the research that I've done, and I'm sure you've done a lot of research out there, every one of y'all, and y'all seen a lot of crazy things. All right, the thing is, it looks exactly 100% a mirror image. It is the same thing. There's no difference. There is no difference. It's apples and apples, Parkland and coronavirus. That's right, coronavirus. Coronavirus. All right, Parkland. It's the same thing, same exact thing. And a lot of people might be like, "Well, what is it? What could I possibly mean by that?" Pretty much, it's the same protocols, it's the same formula, and everything went down the same way. And I guess there's many ways in which I can prove that, but it's just to say, like, there's a lot of. It looks. I mean, if you were to check out, for example, what people are looking at on the TV, aren't they hearing about the coronavirus on the TV? Yeah, they are, aren't they? Hearing about that Parkland shooting way back. I mean, I don't know if you remember it, but back then, before this whole plague took over, they were talking about this mass shooting thing, and they wouldn't stop talking about it. It was all over the place. It was what everyone should talk about. Parkland at one point in time. Now the majority of the populace absolutely does not even remember it. Right? Oh, don't you call me right now. What in the world? During my broadcast. From Big Spring. I don't know what kind of technical difficulties. I don't know whose number that is. They might have doxed themselves right now, and whatever. They doxed themselves. I don't know if you could see it. Someone tried to call me in the broadcast, and I really can't take that off because it's just all a part of my cell phone. People can call me, but I'd rather they didn't because I'm not going to answer you during my broadcast. And I just hope it didn't knock the whole audio out. And I see that there's two people in the building. We're about to get into the whole Parkland thing. But like I said, it's not the most important thing. In fact, we're going to talk about way more important things on the next live stream that hopefully is tonight, this evening. So thank you for joining me. But hopefully nobody calls me and stuff. There's some probably people trying to collect debt or some stuff. Okay, but anyways, like I said, mirror image, same thing. And before we get into it, I just want to mention the simple things. There's simple truths that you're coming to realize, that everybody's coming to realize. It's just like that you have to hold on to no matter what. It doesn't matter what person is in a building. If you're a reporter and you're crying, if you're a reporter on the television or wherever else and you're crying while delivering the news, then something's wrong, something's amiss, and something is afoot, and something is afoul. And it's like that doesn't happen every day, where the reporters start crying. So when I say that, okay, there's different instances that are like that, but Parkland, they started crying on TV as reporters. Coronavirus is the same thing, and they're coming out with bizarre stories. All right, and just like in Parkland, before we dive into it with the coronavirus, you had people saying things and telling you all these stories and anecdotal stuff to prove that we should lock ourselves down, break ourselves off, totally give up on the future just because so we can all stay safe in a closet somewhere with a mask over our face. Right? It's to convince us. And so they make up stories that really can't be cross-referenced. We can't find out whether or not they'll be telling all sort of sob stories to convince us of our own desire to destroy ourselves economically. They'll convince us that it has to be this way while crying and stuff. And I don't want to get into too much, but basically it looks exactly the same. For example, people are probably dying. And before we get into the Parkland thing, I do think people probably died. And I just want to get a jump on it. But people are probably dying and you're actually who's at fault. For example, it really doesn't matter what we're talking about as far as rights go, but you're at fault. You become at fault. Okay, so before we get into Parkland, a lot of people already remember what that is. It was a mass shooting. And so when this mass shooting happened, and you probably don't remember it, it had nothing to do with you at all, but you became instantly guilty. Why? Maybe because you own a gun. Maybe because you have the right to defend yourself and your family. And so you became instantaneously guilty. Now we go to the coronavirus, which seems to be unrelated. Okay, now that you don't wear a mask, now you're guilty. Now you want to kill people. And you're a criminal. And even if they don't harass you, they'll still look at you like you're some sort of killer criminal. And so, in those regards, and probably many other regards, they mirror each other. They're the same exact thing, right? And I say that for the people who are seeing the coronavirus stuff and they're realizing just how fake and fraudulent it is. And then they're seeing all this anecdotal stuff and they're seeing all these numbers, quote, statistics on their faces, and that doesn't add up. And meanwhile, they're supposed to be a criminal over it if they don't want to wear a mask. In San Antonio, Texas, I gotta say, we're gonna dive into the sparkling stuff, but I've been seeing people in San Antonio, Texas. I mean, it's one thing, everybody's playing and pretending, going to these stores. First of all, it is all playing and pretending. Going to these stores with masks, okay, I get it. They're gonna harass you if you don't wear the mask. All right. I see that, and I actually had to go to Ross today, and I picked up some shoes. And hey, man, just to let you know, I strapped a bandana on my face, and you can call me whatever. But I went and got the shoes. I don't hardly go to Ross. I'm not gonna go to any grocery store and wear a mask, dude. If I go to Ross, it's gonna be for 5 minutes to get those shoes, get in, get out, and have shoes on my feet later on for running. That's what I want to do, and it was crucial. I need to run, right? It's a big part of my day. And so I got it, and okay, yeah, you wear it in the store. Take it off after you get out of the store. They're playing and pretending. But I see people out, and I swear it's over 100-degree weather here in San Antonio, Texas. Not very surprising. And they're almost falling out dying because of these masks. And we talked about that a lot at the farmer's market as well. Shout out to my man. I don't know if he wants his name all out there, but he knows who he is. All right. So that being said, you can look at all the Corona stuff and all the lies that they're telling you. And even if you don't know very much about the Parkland thing, you don't remember at all, that's not really crucial that you know right now. In fact, I want to talk to people so they pretty much never heard of it before. But with a little research, you can go ahead and check it out, cross-reference me all you want, and see that everything that I'm about to bring up right now, it's absolutely documented. It's kind of interesting thing about Parkland is that it was extremely documented. I mean, it was in just thousands and thousands of articles and stuff, this and that, people putting out details, putting out this and that, trying to make celebrities of people from the high school, if you do recall. But we're going to talk about that. All right. So let's just get into it. I actually wrote some notes, just real simple notes. All right. But we are going to go off the cuff. Thing is, I want to make sure I didn't leave anything out. All right, so as we dive into it, Parkland, okay, for if you never heard of it before, all right, I'm gonna be real simple. There was a mass shooting, and it was in 2018, Valentine's Day, like I said before, in this town called Parkland, at a high school, Marjorie Stoneman Douglas. This is in South Florida, which is a wild, wild place. It's in a county called Broward County, all right, which became very infamous. And it was actually already infamous before this whole incident that happened February 14th, 2018. All right, like I said, mass shooting. Now, the official narrative, it's plain as day. You can find it anywhere you go. The official narrative is that this man to the left, this young man, if you see him, Nicholas Cruz, I don't have much visuals for y'all, but it's kind of like it's just an audio thing right now, basically. If you want to see, that's Nicholas Cruz. He was the young man who apparently, allegedly, shot up the school, Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, that day, and it's towards the end of the day. At that school. He gets there. to be very simple. He's not going to that school. He's not in class already. He arrives there on like an Uber or a Lyft. I think it was a Uber, something. He arrives to the school with a case. Now, it was debated whether or not it was a guitar looking case, or a gun case, or maybe a soft gun case, and there's various different cases of that stature that you can find. He takes that with him, takes an Uber to the high school, gets off. The Uber driver is none the wiser. She has no idea why he might be doing it and doesn't really think twice about it. Nicholas Cruz then goes into the school, goes onto the campus, which obviously wasn't very secure. Alright, that's neither here nor there. Most of the schools back then in the nation, and I can't speak for right now, but most of the schools back then were absolutely not secure, not hardly at all, in the least. Alright, take that for what you will. But they just weren't secure. Now, Nicholas Cruz, he goes up onto the campus, allegedly. This is all official narrative, was undisputed in the mainstream. And he goes into a particular building. Now, on this campus, it's an open campus. Marjorie Stoneman Douglas. It's what they call an open campus, meaning their hallways basically are outdoors. All right, so they have different separate buildings in which you can go to, a lot of different various ones, and their hallways basically are outdoors, if you can imagine it. Right? Some people do it like that. So I guess in South Florida, they do it like that. Alright, so he goes to a particular building. Now it's referred to as the freshman building. It's, just so you know, I think it's like 1200 building, the 1200 building. Freshman building, mainly freshman classes in there. And in my high school, in particular, there was a freshman part of the building in which, there was a lot of freshman classes. So I'm sort of familiar with the whole idea behind that. So they have a whole building dedicated to it. Nicholas Cruz allegedly goes up in the building with an AR-15, if I remember correctly. And that's in the case, right? And then, okay, I don't want to get too lost in the details right now, but he goes up in the building, he goes up into the stairwell, and he gets his gun ready, and then he goes into the first floor of the building, and the building has 3 floors. Goes on the first floor and starts to shoot it all up. Okay, this is the official narrative. Starts to shoot it all up. I mean, going from classroom to classroom, shooting through never entering a classroom, never, on this whole incident. Shooting through windows and stuff into classrooms, and he shoots a few people. Some people get killed, and some people probably get injured while he's shooting up the first floor. According to the official narrative, sometime in this particular point of the incident, fire alarm goes off. Right? And we're going to talk about that more later, but fire alarm goes off, okay? And so he keeps shooting up the school. On the first floor of this school, he goes from one end to the other end. He then gets into it because on opposite ends of this building, you got staircases. So he goes to the other end and goes up that staircase to the second floor. And really, honestly, it's highly disputed. Trust me, I did a lot of research on it, and it's very confusing. But he goes up to the second floor and doesn't kill anybody. Doesn't go into any of the classrooms. Nothing. Somehow, some way, wanders through the second floor and cuts from one end to the other. And then he proceeds into getting into the stairwell again and going up to the third floor. Now, I believe the fire alarm had been cut off by this point. Nicholas Cruz never makes it to the third floor and the fire alarm's going off. Through all the research I've done, if I understand correctly, it turned itself off long before that. He goes up to the third floor and he proceeds to shooting that up in a way that he just didn't even bother doing on the second floor. Shoots up the third floor. I know this is a lot if you've never heard about this, but I'm trying to give you a play-by-play of exactly what they said he did. Shoots up the third floor, and in this case also does not go into any of the classrooms. Mind you, just to let you know, he could have easily gotten into any of these classrooms. Number one, he has an AR-15. And I don't know that it would be any more tougher than shooting at the doorknobs and stuff right there where, you know what I'm saying, shooting that off and then he just kicked the door down. If he wanted to, he never did. Never even tried to. And in fact, some of the doors were not even closed and locked. Right? Trust me, I've done a lot of research on it. There's some doors were open, but he decides to go into none of the doors. He walks from one end to the other, shooting everybody up, killing some people. I believe he killed 6 people on the 3rd floor. This is alleged. And then he goes into so he walks to the other end of the building. He goes into some faculty lounge. And from there, it took all this havoc and pandemonium and chaos and killings for the police to apparently show up. Right? Mind you, at this point, we're being very simple. So there's a lot of details that we'll touch on later. But he tries to shoot out the windows of the class faculty lounge and fails at it. Okay? He realizes that there's nothing more he can do. And so he drops all his weapons and stuff. Well, actually, they just said he had one rifle. He had like a vest or something. He had a baklava, and that's like a ski mask, basically. And he had this story. He dropped all that stuff on the 3rd floor, and then went down through the staircase down to the 1st floor. Mind you, in front of all sort of police officers at that point, who were all directly, and I'm talking about 4 or 5 different police cruisers. All the police were facing directly his direction. Him coming out the front door. The exact door that they said he left out of, come to find out, and it took like months of revelation, and sometimes weeks and months. But come to find out, all the police officers were staring directly at his direction now. I don't know if they were all hiding behind their cars, shaking and shivering. I'm not sure, but Nicholas Cruz, according to the official story of this mass shooting, walks out of the door and blends in with students and makes his escape. And mind you, we're going to talk about some more of the details here in a second, because I want to lay it all out just for people who haven't seen it before. And the reason I actually forgot to mention is, if you were to check out this documentary that I have right here, I can see why people would get lost, very much lost by it, if they had no idea what happened, if this was all new to them and they were to watch this documentary, they would pretty much get lost. They wouldn't know what the hell they were looking at. It was very popular, and it wound up getting like 1.3 thousand views if you check it right now on YouTube. It hasn't been deleted yet. All right. But it's you get lost in the minutia. Because what I'm pointing out in this documentary is a whole bunch of details to people who were already very familiar with the situation already. So I was giving them very esoteric details in order to kind of like, give them more insight on why it is they were questioning it at the time. And this was back in 2018. So it was probably hard to understand. That's why I brought up this. That's why I'm doing this broadcast. That's why I wanted to do this and state it, and I probably will do it more. But just to say that very simply, that's exactly what they said happened. You might say that's startling. If you never heard of this, you might say that's startling that he left. The guy shot up the entire building, and then he just left out the front door, and all these police officers were watching, and he just left out in a blend of students. That's alarming. How could that happen? That's exactly what they said happened. And to this day, if you ask anybody who even remembers it from the mainstream, they'll tell you that's exactly what happened. Okay, that should alarm you very much. But I have to reassure you that it has hardly anything to do with reality. That's like so fantastical that it blows my mind. Right? So that being said, there's a whole bunch of things that I wanted to point out, just because you could use these details and put them to anything. Coronavirus, whatever's next. All these things you got a feeling you've been lied about or been lied to, and you can pretty much reverse engineer all their different little moves that they're going to make right now, as chaotic as they are and as destructive as they are, by remembering these details, all right, or these kind of details, all right, because they're very familiar. It's all the same. That's what I'm getting at. It's all the same. This mass shooting that I just described to you, very simply, that's exactly what happened. All right, but I'm here to tell you that none of that. I mean, everything's way more interesting and way more exciting and actually way more terrifying than that. All right. And it's just to say, like if you're tripping right now with the coronavirus and everything else, with these racial divisions and wars that they're trying to conjure up, if that's tripping you out, they've been doing this for a long time. They've been doing it for a long time. All right. It's going to continue, but the details go so deep that none of us really know where the bottom goes to. All right. And before I go on and tell you basically what really happened, see, I told you the simple story. I told you what's officially the narrative. Now, meanwhile, over the course of days, weeks, and months, if you've never heard of this situation, I'll have you know that people on YouTube, good friends of mine, and also the people I never heard of, were doing things about Parkland, pointing things out. They're very sinister. They were very terrifying. And it's kind of like right now, here's the thing. Parkland didn't upset your lifestyle all that much. Yes, they did try to get the guns, and they're never going to stop trying to get the guns. But it didn't rock the boat hard enough to really upset your lifestyle. Now, some people out there who might just be like me, who find it very creepy and eerie and anxiety inducing if you let it get that far, as the creepiness and the weirdness about these masks. And we know scientifically that they hold no merit and they are not useful at all, regardless if you believe in the virus or not. All right, it's kind of terrifying. Now it's really it's diving into our lifestyle. It's really making a difference. Now, the next time they do it, it's going to be even worse. It's going to be even worse than masks. Some people already know where I'm getting at when I'm talking about forced vaccinations. Regardless, the narrative is that you're guilty, even if you have nothing to do with the Parkland shooting. Even if you have nothing to do with coronavirus and stuff, you just want to live your life and not wear a mask. All right? Because it's kind of suffocating you. Well, you're the criminal, you're the murderer, and you just need to shut up and do what we want you to do. And we're going to cry on the television, and we're going to call you a murderer, and we're going to say you're going to try and kill all people. Meanwhile, in both situations, people are dying. And it's getting to the point where they're so compliant. Right? They're so compliant. And they're so complicit. And the fact is, people are dying. And not only that, they're getting murdered up in the hospitals. Up in who knows wherever else in nursing homes, getting murdered, right? Okay, but they're complicit. Okay, and then when I say they, it's just to say anyone you catch on TV, being a reporter, even talking about these things. All right, they're and because they blasted it all over the TVs back then, and all on the internet, on CNN, MSNBC, talking about it a lot. They're very complicit. Just like they are going to be very complicit now, and they're going to be very complicit in the future, and sell you down the damn river. And it's going to lead to your death because they are some killers. They are some killers. They are complicit. When it comes to the mass media and reporters, I want to stress that it doesn't matter what's their intent. I don't know or care whether or not they know what they're doing or they don't know what they're doing. But they're very complicit. All right? I want to tell you the real story about Parkland. If I might, while we have some time this Sunday, I'm going to tell you the real story about Parkland. I wrote a couple notes right here. All right? The real story, like I said, complicit, mass media, they are fostering an environment in which this can even take place. And I don't care what's their intention. When it came to Nicholas Cruz, he's the alleged shooter of this whole incident. This young kid, who's 19. He's still in jail today, by the way. He hasn't had a trial. And I'm not going to dwell upon that fact right now. Because, yes, we're almost 2 years out from the incident. No, his trial has not even started. But that's not even that's honestly not a detail that irks me very much. Because when you think about it, when you're talking about murder trials and stuff like this across the nation, yeah, sometimes they'll take years to even start. That right there is the detail that lets you know our system's failing us and selling us down the river. How in the world would it take 2 years for a murder trial to even start? But that's just run of the mill. That's what happens all the time. No, a trial hasn't even started for young Nicholas Cruz right here. Trial hasn't even started for him. And by all means, I don't know that a trial will ever happen for Nicholas Cruz when it's all said and done, because there's bigger fish to fry right now, and that's why most people have forgotten about Nicholas Cruz. But there's so many clips out there that if you were to dive hard enough, I'm sure you can find them. CNN, MSNBC, type in Parkland, YouTube and stuff. And it would take you a long time. But if you wanted to make a hobby of it, you could see that, okay, the mass media was complicit from the start. They tried to make Nicholas Cruz look very guilty. Alright, here's the thing. That's not how the system was designed to work anyways, as far as our due process and stuff like that. So it's really, everything that happened was outside of the law when you think about it. The mass media put everything that they could about Nicholas Cruz on Front Street for weeks and months. Alright, even though he is still yet to have a trial. Alright, but that's just run-of-the-mill stuff. That is being above the law. And yet that's just stuff that they gotten us used to. Meanwhile, there's all sort of motives that they tried to attribute to this young man. And what's mind-blowing is all the research, and you can check these sort of things out in these documentaries. I got 3 of them right here, but one got deleted. Alright, so these are 2 documentaries that are on my playlist if you want to see them. They got deleted, and I have some other things that you could check out. Me asking, at one point I was very obsessed with this situation. So much more that I could tell y'all, but I'm not going to talk for hours, you guys. So I wanted to tell you the real story. Okay, after this shooting and whatnot, you notice the mass media went to they went to all lengths in order to put Nicholas Cruz, any sort of detail that they can get about Nicholas Cruz on Front Street. And they started to attribute all sort of motives to him. You can cross-reference all this, in which they said he was a white nationalist white supremacist guy. I swear they said it. They said these things, alright? They said these things, and these things proved to be crucial, because now you can go back and see that they said those things. They said he's a white nationalist supremacist, and they had him affiliated with that. They also gave another motive. They said he actually had girl problems, and he had a love interest, and it went all wrong and stuff, so he got into a murderous rage. They attributed that motive to him. All this stuff is still on YouTube, and it's just for everybody to see it. They attributed that motive to him. And we're talking about the mass media. He still never had a trial. Okay, so this is why he shot up the school. They said, it might have been because he might, I don't know if they ever really said it's because he was grieving his adopted mother's past. So now we're starting to get into the details of Nicholas Cruz. He's a 19-year-old kid who may or may not even attend, and people were very confused about this, whether or not he was attending the high school at the time. Very confused. Alright. So after this incident, they were attributing all sort of motives to him. I'm talking about the mass media, these so-called reporters who are lying and swindling today and trying to take away all your rights today. And trust me, the end of this road ends with your death. Alright? And, there's nothing short of it. And your rape. And I don't even know in what order. Okay, but I'm not saying I'm just saying they're facilitating they're attributing, see, even back then, they were attributing all these motives to Nicholas Cruz. None of them added up, not even for a second. With very cursory investigation did I find that, no, Nicholas Cruz had nothing to do with white supremacy at all. I mean, I shouldn't have to prove that Nicholas Cruz wasn't a racist. But, for example, his half-brother, closest friend in the world, Zachary Cruz, black, right? So it would be kind of hard for Nicholas. It'd just be difficult. It doesn't make any damn sense. Right? And as far as the girl goes, they messed all that up. The thing is, the girl in question, not only was she not there at the shooting, she didn't even go to that school. They want to come up with little tidbits that they like to give us. The mass media did. They had a manifesto. You can check all this out. All right, and I know it's going to be hard to get to. They certainly deleted everything that they could about Parkland here on YouTube. But they try to say, okay, all these things. He had a manifesto. There's a video of him admitting that he was planning to shoot up the school. Now, this was a censure for a lot of people out there. They said, oh, there's a manifesto, there's a video of him saying that he's going to shoot up the school. Well, obviously he did it. And mind you, 1 + 1 does equal 2. Yeah, that makes sense. It makes sense that he would do that. But in checking out the video, doing all sort of investigation, and around the video, that didn't even make sense. For example, if you were to check out his manifesto, he will confess his love for some lady named Angie. Right? Meanwhile, that's not the name of the so-called love interest that Nicholas Cruz was so-called distraught over. And I know this all because they reported it in the mass media. They were talking about all this. Nicholas Cruz's motivation because this girl broke his heart. Meanwhile, in his own manifesto, he's talking about a totally different girl. All right, so that doesn't add up. Nothing added up. And the more I looked into it, I actually found out that Nicholas Cruz had pretty much no reason at all to shoot up that school. And nothing he said ever made sense. And basically, that amongst other things led me to understand it. Probably, and I guess to make a definitive statement about Parkland, probably Nicholas Cruz didn't shoot up anybody. Probably he didn't. Probably Nicholas Cruz didn't shoot up anybody that day, but if you were to look up evidence, like I said, and trust me, it takes a long time, so I wouldn't blame you for not doing it, but you would say, well, they have photos of Nicholas Cruz on campus that day. And they had this different various evidences. I can find out that Nicholas Cruz was there, and he had a gun. Alright, so obviously you don't know what you're talking about. You maybe got all in reference to me. Maybe I don't. Maybe I'm just very confused about this whole situation. No, not at all. But in following that particular incident, in which I became obsessed with a little bit, in the weeks and months after that incident, alright, all sort of corroborating evidence points out to what was more likely. Now, I know that for a new person, what I'm about to say right now, very briefly, very abruptly, you're going to be like, what? How is it? Do you have the evidence? Yeah, I have the evidence, and I've seen all these things. Alright, I can't exactly put it in front of you right now, but you can see all these things if you wanted to. Alright, here's what really happened. And I don't know exactly all the details. This very brief story of what happened at Parkland, and this is my best guess. I can't even tell you that this is what happened for real, just because I don't know what happened. Right? But my best guess is this. Okay, Nicholas Cruz, he's coaxed into coming onto that campus that day. I don't even think he was going to. I don't know if he was enrolled in that school that year or not. And in fact, there's a lot of people would be very confused about whether or not he was, even at 19. All right, Nicholas Cruz is coaxed to come to that school that day. Okay, and he's actually made into a patsy, which, I can't say it's going to happen in that regard now. I don't know what exactly is going to happen as far as school goes from here on out. They want all your children to wear masks, by the way. But, okay. So, Nicholas Cruz, he's coaxed into coming there. And I'll explain a little bit of that later. But he's coaxed into following a drill. A drill that he thinks is happening. And that actually goes on to explain why he, quote, made a manifesto. It seems as though he was tricked into acting and playing a part. Yes, this kid who's alleged to be this mass shooter and is in jail right now for it, never had a trial. he gets coaxed into thinking that he's in a drill about mass shooters. And we're going to talk about some of it, but it's just to say that there's a lot of tomfoolery going on there. He gets coaxed into it, and it's going to be wild. But from what I've seen, he thinks he's participating in a drill. Halfway before this drill is over, meanwhile, the whole school thinks it's a drill, because oddly enough, there's been rumors of a mass shooting drill that was going to take place at that very campus any day. Any day. All the children were talking about it. And you can cross-reference all this. So he thinks he's participating in a drill, and he's not. Well, he kind of is. Right? And yes, a fire alarm goes off. All sort of students are wandering around this campus. They don't know what's going on. Okay? People were witnessing to gunshots. They heard gunshots. Students. All this stuff's coming out on the mass media, and it's pouring out ever since the incident. Like, I mean, there was reporters out there interviewing kids who were running from the incident. All right. They were talking about it for ever since the start of it, right? And of course, they were putting it out way more than it needed to be. And in fact, when you consider due process, I don't want to get back into that, but it's just to say they were all up in their business, and they were talking to all sort of people. Okay, Nicholas Cruz, he goes and he thinks he's in a drill, just like everybody else probably thinks it's a drill. How or why reporters got there so fast and got to talking to all these kids over the next couple of days, the next few weeks. Why they felt that was appropriate, I don't know. Perhaps they thought they were participating in a drill, and there's no way to really know whether or not they were. I'm sorry I was getting sidetracked, but Nicholas Cruz, he thinks he's participating in a shooting drill and realizes real quickly that some shooting is happening. There's loud gunshots, but it's not coming from his gun. I don't know if it's a fake gun or a real gun. I know nothing. But as far as Nicholas Cruz says, he hears he hears gunshots that aren't his. He gets very confused. He realizes people aren't participating in the drill that he thought like they were. All right. Nicholas Cruz, this young kid, then gets very, like I said, he's confused. It comes out later that he's kind of autistic, and trust me, we're going to talk about that. And he gets distracted. He actually winds up leaving. He winds up putting all his stuff down and leaving out the building all with other students, just walking out with him. The reason why all the students were walking out with him is they think it's a fire drill. Remember, there's a fire alarm. And so he leaves out, and after he leaves out the building, people may or may not get shot up all over the place. All right, that's where a lot of people, way back in the day, for the people who've heard about it way back then, they're bored by this conversation. They say nothing happened, nobody got shot. I think people did get shot, actually, and there's really no way for me to prove that. But what I believe happened from all what I looked into is that there were rogue elements, if you will, that were described not only in this situation, but have been described before and after that situation, coming in and basically handling it from there on out. Perhaps shooting up the school, perhaps not shooting up the school. I got a little bit sidetracked, but here's the thing. Let me backtrack. All right, Nicholas Cruz gets set up for this whole incident. Okay, and there's people who may or may not have actually shot up the school in his place. You might be asking, like, who are these people? I couldn't say. Very militaristic people, if that is what happened. All right, and they get away with it by, in front of everybody's faces at that time, sneaking out all sort of evidence, sneaking it up into the backs of trucks, and basically having their way with the high school. All right, man, it's kind of hard to explain this whole entire situation. All right, so I'm gonna step back. Gosh, I don't know if I want to restart this whole broadcast. But maybe I will. Hey, who's up in the building? Unwrapped by Brenda? Oh man, so it's Unwrapped by Brenda up in the building. Alright, so alright. Here, Brenda, I don't know what you're doing right now. Alright, but I'm gonna come back. And I did all this talking, and I don't know what you're doing right now, but I'm gonna come back, restart the broadcast, and try to lay out exactly what happened, or what I think might have happened, and why. Here's the thing. I want to make sure that it cuts right to the point. It's not very long, and I already have carried on for a long time, like 45 minutes. I want to get right to the point and get this over with and stuff. All right, and make something that you can watch from one end to the other and really get a gist of what it is that I'm talking about. All right, and I don't want to make it too long. So what I'm going to attempt to do right now, I'm going to cut off the broadcast and come right back on in a second. All right, anyways, I'll holler at you in a second because I want to get this out. It's not even very important, all right, but it is kind of important, and I want to talk about more important stuff later. And anyways, I'll holler at you in a second.